celebrate his 101st birthday.
For the rest of my life, will you be my partner? Every night, when we're together, it feels so right that I have with you for the rest of my life.
Milo the Boy, taken from the history of Milo Wade Lines, read by grandson Milo Warner Lines. As I write my history, my recollection of the past has become dimmer, and my memory has probably played tricks on me, and perhaps big things have become little, and little things big. But I'll try to write my history as I remember it. Never did the big city of Pima, Arizona, even imagine that one such as Milo Wade Lines would one day arrive in this fair city. Oh, what a break, yes, to be born to such good parents as Joseph Henry Lines and Sarah Elizabeth Farron Lines. So much great has happened to me because I found myself a member of this big family of boys and girls. Arrival date, March 8th, 1905.
That was about where the front of the house was. We had a 10-acre block here, and I guess we had 2.5 acres in a fish. But I was the 8th one born right there.
My beautiful mother, who came from the Farron clan, she was patient, courageous, kind, and loving. The Farrons first came to the Americas in 1719. Where our ancestor, Captain Jonathan Farron, came from England at the behest of the king to fight in the French and Indian War. He decided to stay. After several begats, my great-grandfather Samuel Farron joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on February 15th, 1841. He moved west with the Saints and had lots of trials and lots of wives. His wife, Olive Fidelia Kuhn, gave birth to my grandfather, Jacob Samuel Farron. My grandfather died in 1882, shortly after coming to Arizona, leaving my grandmother, Janetta McBride Farron, a widow. Her people, the McBrides, also came from England, but by way of Scotland and Ireland. Her father and mother had joined the church in England and decided to gather with the saints in America also. They were part of the Willie and Martin Handcart Company that suffered severely, and many family members died, including her father, Robert McBride. She and her brother, Peter, both landed in Pima, where my mother lived most of her life. All are buried in the Pima Cemetery. My father, Joseph Henry Lines, worked so much and put in such long hours at the store, the Lines Brothers Mercantile of Pima, that I hardly knew him until he retired. He was a great educated man, serving in many leadership and government positions. He had even served a Southern States mission before I was born. He was in the Arizona State Legislature for several years and helped pass legislation to improve the school systems. I knew that my father and his brothers were all great athletes by the stories told round town. But he worked so much that I never saw him play, and I don't think he ever watched me play either.
Grandma and Lines were very interested in athletic sports, as proved by the fact that every one of his boys Every one of his boys were ball players. It started out with my dad. He was one of the first curveball pitchers west of Mississippi, as they used to say. Then Uncle Sam, he was a great ball player. And I have an old picture at home showing the Pima ball team, and there were 5 of the Lions boys on the ball team.
The Lyons folks also came from England, where John Lyons and his wife, Jane Haddon, joined the church in 1849. John was a skilled gardener and worked for many years for the Lloyds of London insurance offices in Birmingham, England. In 1864, the Lyons family decided to come to the Americas to join the Saints. They had a rough go. Only 5 members out of the 11 who started the trip made it to Utah. Jane Haddon Lyons died during the journey. They settled in Goshen, Utah to farm, but in 1866, John fell from a wagon and died. After his death and a fight over water rights, the remaining family members split and went their separate ways. With my grandparents, Henry and Emily Weege Lyons, moving to Arizona. Although excommunicated after the Goshen mess, they remained active and raised their kids in the church. That's how my folks met and married in Thatcher, Arizona, and how I came about. Eventually, there would be a total of 13 children born to my parents, 8 girls and 5 boys. The oldest, Frida, was born in 1892. Then Cora in 1894. A boy, Charles, who we called Chuck, in 1896. And then Rowena in 1898. Twins run in our family, and Lavina and Lavona, known as Shorty, were born in 1901. My grandfather, Henry Lyons, was a twin, but his baby brother, John, died when they were born. My brother, Walter, was next in 1903, followed by me in 1905, then Maggie in 1907. She was sickly and didn't last a year. And then Alice in 1908. Another baby, Cleve, born in 1910, died of typhoid fever at the age of 3. It seems like the whole family got sick about then. Claude was born in 1912 and Della in 1916, which completed our very large, wonderful family. When I was born, we lived in a 2-room house in the heart of Pima, Arizona, about where the ice cream shop is now. When I was about 8, we moved to the ranch 5 miles from the center of Pima. Dad had homesteaded on the land with the idea of a farm. The Highland Canal was to be built so there would be water from the ditch and we would have a nice farm. It didn't happen, however. So we owned a jackrabbit and rattlesnake farm. Mother hated the ranch. She killed enough rattlesnakes in the yard to scare the pants off most women. As a child, I learned to love all kinds of sports at school. I liked baseball, basketball, and track best. It was wonderful to have grandparents who lived so close to us. Grandmother Lyons, Emily Weech, always had time and an old sock to make a ball for us kids. And Grandpa Lyons, Henry Lyons, would help us with a bat of some kind, usually out of wood from the big cottonwood trees that we climbed in. We had lots of fun playing and doing as little work as possible. Grandma Farron, Janetta Ann McBride, also lived close by, and always had treats for us kids. Her husband had been killed in 1882, shortly after the family arrived in Pima from Utah. So I never knew him. He was killed by the Apaches on one of his freight runs. Sports wasn't all that filled my life, although they will always be part of me. As a young 8-year-old, I became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Several of us wild young boys were rounded up and taken to the Rogers Reservoir and baptized. It was a cold, windy spring day, and about all I remember is that we nearly froze to death.
Sarah Elizabeth Farron Lines, read by great-granddaughter Lacey Lines Ebert. During the years between 1908 and 1914, we had a great deal of sickness and tragedy in our family. Our baby Maggie, born in 1907, was never well and just lived 11 months. In 1908, Charlie was very seriously ill with typhoid fever. The following summer, Frida also had typhoid fever. And the summer of 1910, 4 of the children, Cora, Alice, Lavina, and Charlie, were down with this terrible disease all at the same time. It was practically impossible to get help. So Frida and I had to do all of the nursing while Rowena and Lavona cooked, kept house, and ran errands. In the midst of all this death and illness, Cleve was born. Cora was never very well after she had had typhoid and was left with Bright's disease and a bad heart. The doctors knew little about treating these diseases at that time. We tried everything that we know how to do to help her. We took her to the hot springs for treatment. For a long time, I drove a horse and buggy to Safford every week to take her to a doctor there. 2 summers, I took her up to Mount Graham, which seemed to help some, but nothing really worked, and she passed away with pneumonia in July of 1914 while we were at the mountain. Walter had typhoid in 1912 and was sick for months. We almost despaired of his life, but finally, through faith, he was healed. It was during his illness that Claude was born. Cleve became very ill in 1913. At first, it seemed to be just an upset stomach, but that developed into typhoid fever and then pneumonia, from which he died in April 1913. Besides illness, another tragedy struck when the Lines store burned down in the spring of 1914. Such hard years. After Cora's death, thankfully, we had no more serious illness and the family were all healthy and strong once again.
Dr. Dryden, and then he was a great doctor, but he never placed he had anyone sick. The first thing he'd say is call Aunt Lizzie. That was my mother, because she was a better doctor than he was.
Most of our summers were spent on the top of Old Mount Graham. I really loved that mountain. It seems there must be the bad with the good. We had really great sports teams in Pima. I never seem to remember when we came in second or last. And it sticks in my mind that we always won. I'm sure we lost some, but I don't remember it. The year I was in the 8th grade, we came out on top in most everything. That was the year that really spoiled me and went to my head. I actually won the 100-yard dash, the high jump, the broad jump, the standing jump, and was a member of the winning team in baseball and basketball that year. I, of course, was glory-struck. As I remember, that was also the first time I heard the name Skousen. There was a pretty good athlete by that name entered into many of the events I participated in. As it turns out, he was brother of my sweet wife-to-be, Lena Skousen. We had a celebration in Pima. There was a wild burro riding contest. The boys under 15 who wanted to participate had to ride a wild bucking burro. It was quite a job getting those burros rounded up. And although I won the event, it was probably because my burro had longer hair than the rest, and that was what we had to hang on to stay aboard. That was the first $10 I ever won at a rodeo. Each year, the freshman class at Gila Academy put on a really big dance. I, along with a beautiful redhead, was on the dance committee. That was the first I had ever met my sweetheart. We danced around, practicing a bit while planning the event. She was the cutest and friendliest little gal I had ever known. Well, when the big dance came that night, I didn't dance with her, and she labeled me a snob, which I was. But I was shy too, especially in public around girls. The Lord really blessed me with athletic ability, not to brag. But I thought I was pretty great, and by the age of 16, had started on the baseball team, the track team, and the basketball team, and was a main player. The next year, our teams were so good, we were banned from playing other high schools and had to compete against other two-year colleges. We didn't do so good against them that first year. But the next couple, we were again winning everything, and we were undefeated in most sports: football, baseball, and especially basketball. We were ranked 4th in the nation and even beat many professional teams. We attended Mutual in those days, classes for youth. We had to learn how to dance with a girl. I was so shy and awkward in those days that I would rather walk clear around the block than walk past a girl. My legs wouldn't work right, but thankfully, my sweet sister helped me and I learned to dance.
1, 2,
I learned to love dancing.
5, 6, 7, 8. Touch and step, touch and step.
This brought a big change in my life. I no longer feared girls, and as a result, my little Red forgave me for not dancing with her at that first freshman dance. Lena was a wonderful dancer and was so popular that it took me 3 years before she'd agreed to go on a date with me. She had a boyfriend, several in fact, but we had such a good time joking and talking together that it drove them nuts and put me in a good position to ask her out. I must have danced 1,000 miles with her before she finally said yes to a date. And then 3 more years before she said yes to my proposal. I worked several jobs and won money at several rodeos trying to save enough money for the next big event in my life: marriage.